Well, welcome everyone. I want to welcome you into this space, the Foundation for Conscious Living's Big Leap Home community. And I really appreciate that you're all here. And I'm Michelle Yasuda, if you don't know me, and I'm the program director for this online community, for the online programs, which support individuals, organizations, and communities in generating agency, connection, and creativity on our shared planet. And I love that intention. And these Big Leap Bridge calls that you're on right now are one of the ways that we carry this out. This is one of the ways that we express this creativity and create community. So I'm going to go over a few logistics. One of them is that I want to invite you to join our Big Leap Home Network, which is an online gathering space for the Hendricks community. And it's a platform where you can connect with the community, people here, also with Katie Hendricks. She loves to chat about how we're all using these tools in our lives. So she loves to hear about that. So you can ask questions and share what you've been up to. And you'll also hear about the latest events. And we have tools that get posted on there. So just like on Facebook or Instagram, where you get resources and tools, we have that on our community. So I will put a link in the chat once I'm complete with my part here. And feel free, if you have any questions about that, you can ask me about that. So if you have questions tonight, feel free to raise your hand or Juna's going to invite. There'll be a lot of interaction. And so you'll have those opportunities for that. So she'll just let you know. And you can also put questions in the chat if you'd like to, if you prefer that. So just put 3 question marks in front of your question. That helps me to see it. So let's see. The last thing I want to do before I start to turn the call over to Juna is to invite you into a commitment. So when you listen to these words, notice how they land in your body. We find that learning works best when we choose to bring curiosity, openness to learning, and appreciation of ourselves and others into the space. Yeah. So this is when in our Big Leap Bridge world, we like to say an appreciation for our facilitators. And I just met Juna for the first time, and that's unusual for me. I usually know our facilitators a little bit more. And so one thing I want to appreciate about you, Juna, is the work that you're doing in the world around anger feels so important to me. And I'm really appreciating that you've taken this topic that is, really crucial for humans to learn how to be with one another and all of the range of our feelings. So I want to appreciate you for your interest and your passion for this topic. And so I'm going to turn the call over to you. Please let us know anything you want us to know about you, and then you can begin.
Hey, well, thank you for that appreciation. That felt really, really nice to hear. And hi, everyone. So nice to see a whole bunch of new faces. My name's Juna Mustad, and I never in a million years thought that I would be leading talks, teaching workshops on anger, in large part because anger was an emotion that I really didn't like. It was something that I deemed to be ugly and bad. And a little bit of my own history that got me here, which I think is important. It kind of informs what the lens through which we'll be kind of exploring this topic. I grew up with a father who I love very, very much, but he was an anger erupter. He was someone who at times would really be quite explosive with his anger. He wasn't physically violent, but his energy, his words were really scary and intense to me as a child. So growing up, seeing my dad do anger that way, I really learned anger is bad, anger is ugly, don't want to be like my dad. So I modeled myself more off of my mother, who was more of that people pleaser, good girl type. And I learned to really stuff my own anger. I didn't really even have a relationship with anger growing up. And, you know, if I'm honest, this strategy worked well. I mean, I'm sure other people pleaser types on the call kind of know, like, the world likes us people pleasers. But it all came to a head in my 20s, actually, right before I joined the Hendricks Leadership and Transformation Program is kind of when this all came to a head. I'd entered a relationship with a man, turned out to be a psychologically abusive relationship. And year 3 of that relationship, my anger started to flare up in my body. And I didn't even know it was anger. I didn't even know that this acid reflux and this simmering, burning feeling that was moving through me, the tightness in my jaw, my neck, my shoulders was anger. I just thought, there's something really uncomfortable here. How do I make it go away? But it didn't go away. It actually got worse and worse. It started, because I was ignoring those body flags, it started to manifest as now anxiety and panic attacks. So I finally took the cue. I listened and I thought, okay, I need to break up with this guy, and then this bad feeling will go away. Finally broke up with him, had the courage to do that, but the feelings did not go away. And so then I tried every trick in the book, worked with healers, did all sorts of strategies. How do I make this anger go away? Nothing was working until I finally did the one thing I had been resisting doing. I turned to face it. I imagined, and this is something for those of you who've done a lot of Hendricks work, there's something called the persona interview, where we can talk to a part of ourselves. Well, I believe we can also do this with our emotions. We can talk to our emotions. So I finally turned towards my anger and I started to dialogue with it. And it shared with me some really important things that I had built a whole life off of overriding my yeses and my nos. I built a whole life not valuing myself and prioritizing the needs and values of others above my own. So it was almost like the mirror. Anger in some ways was just this big old mirror helping me see myself. And even though this emotion catalyzes so many uncomfortable physiological responses and sensations in our body, I came to appreciate this emotion for the gifts that it can give us. So this is what we're going to be diving into today. Is my hope is for some of you who have been maybe resistant to your anger because when it comes over you, it suddenly takes over, or you've been resistant to this emotion because you've been a bit of a stuffer like me and you don't even want to feel this emotion. My hope is for all of you to be able to have a bit of an experience of the gifts of this emotion and to start to build a little bit more of a relationship with this emotion, because then we can respond to situations in front of us with more attunement and less from that space of erupting or stuffing. So I'll be going into some of that today. So that's a little bit about my story here. And I'm just delighted to be with all of you. And yeah, I think to start, one thing I'll just say, we'll be kind of exploring 3 main things today. Number 1, what is anger? What is this emotion? We'll also be playing with it a little bit in our bodies, using sounds, using just sensing and feeling. And then we'll also be doing a little bit of a persona interview with this emotion so we can deepen our relationship with it. Before we dive into any of that, though, just want to start with a question, which is, and again, like Michelle said, you can write in the chat, you can raise your hand. You can also, well, let's see, we kind of have a big group here. So maybe, yeah, raising your hand or writing in the chat might be good. But yeah, just to start here, I want to ask you a question. And just when you hear the word anger, or its emotion, anger, what are some of the first images, words, feelings that pop up for you? fire, expression, buzzing energy, power. My dad. Yep, my dad too. Tightness in the chest, explosive. Yeah, red explosion. Yeah. Volcano. Someone else said dad's. Depression, shallow breathing, yelling, anxious tightness in my body. Mom. Tightness in my shoulders, not okay. Yeah, and not okay is very common. This is a very stigmatized emotion, and for good reason. You know, this emotion can lead, as one of you saying, to violence or aggression. Ugly, want to hide, girls shouldn't be angry, not allowed. Yeah, great. So there is a lot here around this emotion. And again, it makes sense. Danger, as someone else is saying. And it just makes sense why, for a lot of us, we're like, I don't want to have anything to do with this emotion. So first of all, I just want to say thank you, everyone who's showing up today, because it takes courage to be willing to turn towards uncomfortable things. In many ways, our brains, our bodies are really hardwired to avoid the uncomfortable stuff. So maybe everybody just take a deep breath. And let's just bring in some of that appreciation for ourselves for even being willing to show up on this call today. And one thing that Gabor Mate, who's done a lot of work around trauma and addiction, one thing he shared is that as children, we have two fundamental needs. One of them is for authenticity, to be real, to be our true selves. And the other one is for connection, to be connected. And that we will forego authenticity in order to ensure connection. And so for some of us, we learn very early on, my anger isn't allowed. My anger isn't okay. I have to stuff it in order to maintain the connection with my parent, with my primary caregiver. And so that is something that happens at times. And so again, learning to create a healthier relationship with this emotion can be big for some of us. So I also just want to name that as we're doing some of this work today, if some of you start to feel a little overwhelmed or a little bit of freeze, that's also normal, and be gentle with yourselves. No pushing here. So next question I want to ask you, and again, anyone can just raise their hand or use the chat if you want, but just feel into yourselves for a moment. When you feel angry, when you feel frustrated, when you feel irritated, what is something you typically do with your anger? Some of you might yell, some of you might cry, some of you might feel frozen, some of you might throw things. So just feel into that for a moment. Like, what are the typical things you do? Michelle's saying she likes to blurt. That's actually one of my favorite things now too. Some people push it away, eat, raise my voice, go into fight, lash out, blame others. Yeah, shut down. Go into fight, get defensive. Yeah, there's a lot of different things we tend to do. And I'm seeing here kind of a mixture of things. Some people, when anger comes up, they kind of go into fight and they attack, they blame themselves. All that is more of that fight response. And for some of us, when anger comes up, we go more into anything but the fight response. So I'll share with you a little bit about what humans typically do with their anger. Then we'll kind of go into the essence of anger a little bit. But this quote kind of sums up, and I talk about this quote actually in my TEDx talk that I did in 2019. But this quote sums up what humans typically do with their anger. This quote is, anger is like a child. We don't want to let it drive the car, and we certainly don't want to stuff it in the trunk either. So most of us, if anger is a child, most of us, all we know how to do is anger is either in the driver's seat and it's driving the car like a little mad 4-year-old, like, or we're like, oh, anger's here, shove the child in the trunk. And so 2 ways to think about this is that either we are anger erupters or we're anger stuffers. And so as I kind of talk about anger, erupting, and stuffing, just be curious, like which of these do I tend to fall into more? So anger erupters, they get hijacked by the brain's fight response. They tend to be explosive in their words and their energy. They can be blaming, as one of you said. They finger point. They kind of are like quick to hold boundaries or attack someone. They move towards whatever the stimulus is in that moment. And then for anger stuffers, we tend to do the opposite. Anger comes up and then maybe we freeze. As one of you said, maybe we shut down. For some of us that are stuffers, we cleverly morph our anger into sadness. Suddenly we're crying. We might, in these moments when we're stuffing, feel really depressed or collapsed, unable to deal with things. Or we go into people pleaser. We kind of go into the fawn response where we just want to caretake the situation, make it all better, make it go away, so that way we don't have to deal with it. So that's a bit of anger erupting, anger stuffing. And I just want to ask you all, I have you all in gallery view right now. And so for those that I can see your video, how many people think that they tend to be more of an anger erupter? Anger erupters, raise your hands. Dun, 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 yeah. And anger stuffers, raise your hand. Yeah. All right. And how many, let's say that they tend to do like just this hybrid of both. You can raise your hand. Yeah. All right. So I just want to give how about we give everyone a round of applause right now? Yay, good job. Good job, everyone. And I know that's kind of silly, but one of the things that I find to be really valuable is we want to thank these coping strategies truly, like honestly. Your anger erupter, your inner anger stuffer, that was the best that you could do. You know, as children, these are probably strategies we learned very early on, and we want to thank them. I want to say thank you. This is the best I could do. I probably had to do this in order to survive. So just reading someone's comment, Juna, what real life outcomes have you experienced by getting friendly with your angers? Just so we have some inspiration, incentive. It's a great question. I will share with you massive outcomes. I no longer have relationships in my life that drain me. I have friendships that are truly enlivening and supportive and mutual. I have an amazing partnership with someone. I no longer need to draw to me these psychologically abusive dynamics. I have an incredible partner. I get angry every day now, and I feel connected to myself when I'm angry, and I don't need to leave myself anymore. And I feel like I have a beautiful relationship with my anger. I feel actually like now having a relationship with anger, I'm more in touch with my sexuality. I'm more in touch with my creativity, and I'm able to welcome all emotions more. So there's not like an aversion. You know, I remember when I was in the leadership and transformation program, and Katie Hendricks would talk about how if we have a certain emotion that we are unwilling to feel, it's almost like our pipes are clogged. Like there's a kink in our hose, or we can't access some of our other emotions. So I have access to the full range of Juna, which is pretty darn cool. So yeah, thank you for asking that question, because I do want to incentivize you all to stay on this call and continue to do this work. So that's a little bit about anger stuffers and erupters. Are there any questions before I move on here? And again, you can, yeah, I see Deborah raising her hand. Okay.
I was curious about you saying that you eliminated people that drained you because I'd recently done that, and then people were kind of guilt tripping me that I wasn't being forgiving. I wasn't, being spiritual. And I thought of the Byron Katie that I think is part of Gay and Katie's program, that sense of I'm responsible for my emotions, and that it's everybody out there. Life is good if I'm congruent with myself. And then I didn't know if it left room to eliminate people from your circle. Does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, I think what I'm hearing you say is that you did do some of that and that you kind of now have felt guilty, or there's like a way you're second guessing it.
I'm
And
getting
yeah,
feedback from people that I'm not spiritually fit because I'm not bringing these people that have drained me back in the loop, like a forgiving person, kind of being judged for it.
yeah. And I guess all I'd offer is, do you feel better without having these people in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the proof's in the pudding. And, in my experience, there are some people I cleared out of my life and then they did circle back. And with some of them, I kind of was like, should I give this person another chance? And for some of them, I did. And it really, they had gone through some changes and it worked out well. For some of them, I didn't. And it's totally okay. So I think it's powerful. And yeah, spiritual, like I'm a spiritual person, and I believe that we also can be very, like, being spiritual means I love myself and I can be very discerning about what I'm doing with my time and energy. So yeah, thank you for that.
Okay.
And was anyone else raising their hands at you, Tracy? No. Okay. And anyone else want to share, ask a question before we move on? Donna, is that you raising your hand? No. Okay, sorry. Okay. Wonderful. All right. Well, then next thing we'll just go into here is just, I want you to now think about, okay, so we've talked about anger stuffers and erupters and just this stigmatized emotion, anger, but what are some strategies that we can do? Oh, and Deborah, you might need to mute yourself again.
I'm sorry.
What are some strategies that we can do to actually start to forge a healthier relationship with this emotion? And what does that actually look like? What does that actually look like? So that's kind of the next piece we're going to be playing with here. Because again, I wasn't modeled from my parents. I was modeled, you either erupt or you stuff. But what could it look like to actually have a healthier relationship with our anger? And what's possible when we do that? So I'll just share with you a little slide here, just to kind of give you a little bit of a taster. So the gifts of anger. So when we have a healthier relationship with our anger, we open up the possibility of accessing some of the gifts of this emotion. Pure anger, so really essential anger at its core, it comes forward to illuminate our yeses and nos. It really can illuminate what's not aligned for us. It can reveal our unclaimed power. It arises to protect things that we care for. It can inspire action. You think about civil rights movement, other movements around the world, for the environment. It's ironic because we don't think about anger this way, but anger can reveal that which we love. And so in my experience, when I've really opened to the wisdom of anger, it actually has helped me expand my heart. And anger can heal trauma. And that's been also one of my experiences as well, is connecting with my innate fight response has helped my body and my inner parts feel safer with me. And so trauma can be resolved in this process. So this is part of a little bit of what can be possible here as we start to open up to this emotion and the wisdom of this emotion. I also want to just highlight, I don't want to pedestalize this emotion either. I know, again, anger is like a child. If we let it drive the car and it's unbridled, just driving that old car, some stuff can go down. And so, but if we can create right relationship with it, we can interact with ourselves and with the situation in front of us with, like I said, more attunement. So next thing I want to do together is an exercise to put some of this into practice. So I'm gonna, in a moment, just invite all of us just to connect with our bodies. For those of you that want to do this practice standing, you can, because it will help you feel all of this a little bit more. I'm gonna kind of sit at the edge of my chair, but we're gonna just connect with our anger in a playful way, just starting to build this bridge of meeting this emotion. And in this practice, we're gonna say some words together. We are going to maybe make some sounds, and we're going to move our bodies. So again, just together, let's just take a few deep breaths. I see some of you stretching. So any way you want to stretch, just to kind of come into your body, taking a few deep breaths. Relaxing your jaw. And I'm going to say a word or a sound, and I'm going to invite all of you to repeat it out loud. So I know some of you, all of you are muted, and some of you aren't on screen, but even if you're just calling in or you aren't on video, go ahead and repeat this sound, sentence, word with me. And like Michelle said at the beginning, we're going to be just noticing what arises inside of us with appreciation, with curiosity, and with an open mind. Another deep breath. And the first word I'll have you repeat after me is anger. Anger. Just sensing, feeling what happens in your body. And again, I'll say a sentence here and just noticing, you could do this with your eyes open or closed, but just noticing with that open mind, that curiosity, that appreciation, what happens inside of you as you say this sentence. I feel angry. I feel angry. And now for those of you that want to, just see if you can move your body a little bit. So we're just kind of doing a little bit of movements here. And we're going to do this again while you're moving. And you can move, like kind of wiggle or move in kind of slow undulating waves. Yeah, a little stretch. And just again, I feel angry. I feel angry. Opening your jaw. Opening those hips. Wow. And now again and again, for those of you where this feels a little too much, you don't need to do this because it could bring up a little bit of the freeze for anger stuffers. But if you feel comfortable doing this, we're going to take it to a next level. And so again, if you can, just stay with some movement and repeat after me. I feel angry. I feel angry. And just noticing what comes up for you, how you're feeling. And then one more thing, just to kind of, one more sentence here, just to kind of make this no big deal. Like anger is just normal. I feel angry every day, and that's okay. So we're going to just say a sentence that kind of just destigmatizes anger. So today is Sunday, and I feel angry. Today is Sunday, and I feel angry. No big deal. Yeah. And then just to play with this a little bit, we're going to do a group growl. And I want you, I know there might be like someone in the next room, whatever, but see if you could just go for it if you feel comfortable. together, let's just do a fun and get out your claws, get out your fangs. Together, count of 3. Let's just do a group growl. 1, 2, 3. Actually, let's just do that together. And I'm going to invite, if you feel comfortable, everyone unmute yourself because we need to hear these growls. This is kind of fun. So if you feel comfortable, unmute yourself. And on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's hear those growls. Awesome. Woo-hoo! Round of applause for everyone. That's great. All right. And if you don't mind muting yourselves again. Awesome. And now just everybody, I'm going to invite you just to take some breaths with yourself. Just notice what you feel in your body. There might be some adrenaline, some excitement, some fear. Maybe there's new parts of your body that feel awake right now. Yeah, and if anyone wants to share, how do you feel right now? How was that for you? Again,
I feel suddenly refreshed and clear.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Elijah.
Hi. I just want to say I feel like tension in my shoulders. So I'm just curious what you do with that. Just be with it.
Yeah. So, and I'll just share for myself that the first maybe 50 times I tried to feel my anger, I would either kind of go into a bit of a faint freeze response where I would suddenly get really tired, or there would be suddenly so much tension in my body that I would get overwhelmed. And so this is a practice. And I guess I just invite you first just to be gentle with yourself, that for some of us, we really, truly, our fight response is the biggest threat. And so we learn very early on, anger is bad. And so if there's tension, it might be that there's just a lot of built up anger, or it might be your body kind of saying like, don't go here. I don't know. What does it feel like for you when I say that?
I don't have a response to that.
Yeah. Okay. And one thing you can do right now, Nancy, is maybe even just put your hands on your shoulders, give them a little love.
Okay.
That can also be something like a little massage, a little care. And then something else I do when there is a kind of a big physiological response is I just try to offer this area just some compassion, letting it know I'm safe, everything's okay. And yeah, that's just my hit, is either it's kind of like we've touched the surface of some anger that really wants to come up for you, or there's a bit of like a resistance or protector that's coming online that's like, whoa, 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 don't go here. And so we just slow it all down. That'd be one thing I just suggest for you.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
It feels like between resistance and some sadness. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure other people on the call can relate to that. Like, ooh, I don't feel good right now. I feel like some stuff just came up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. Anyone else want to share? How was this for you? What did you notice? Yeah, Marianne.
Hi, that was great. And I have a question. I love the bodifying and the growling, and I do have a daily practice of letting all my emotions come out. And I definitely, anger is my biggest growth edge. And in this practice just now, I noticed just even I feel angry, or I'm feeling angry. Like, I can't even remember, but I'm sure you must be aware, like there are other teachings around like, oh, I'm aware that there is anger or something, instead of saying I feel is like the wrong way to do it. And I would love you to comment about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like when I had taken the leadership and transformation program with Katie Hendricks, and I might be wrong, so someone correct me on this, that she had emphasized that we try to, it's like we locate ourselves when we say, I feel angry. It's like I'm with myself when I name it that way, as opposed to there is anger, which kind of almost like puts it outside of myself, which can be a helpful technique if like anger is such a big emotion that it's hard to be with. But I noticed for myself, when I name I feel or I am feeling, that it helps me feel like I'm here with myself. And what also, there's also been research done at UCLA that found that when we name what we are feeling in the moment, we name our sensations and our emotions, we actually help re-engage that wise prefrontal cortex. So when anger has come up for us and we're either in that stuffing or erupting, we lose contact with our prefrontal cortex. And naming what you're feeling helps that prefrontal cortex come back online. So that's been my experience. Like I almost started this call today by saying, "Ooh, I'm noticing I'm feeling nervous," and I would do that because it helps me get located with myself. But yeah, any thoughts on that for you?
Well, do you know what I'm talking about? Like there's this whole set of teaching around I'm noticing there's anger, or like yeah.
Yeah, there can be like, I think nonviolent communication
Yeah,
uses
that
like
stuff. Yeah.
and even parts work also
Yeah.
can kind of say
I've
what
done
I'm
all
noticing.
of that.
Yeah. And what I like to just insert is I'm noticing I am feeling angry, as opposed to I notice there is anger. Because then it feels like it puts it over here versus like I get to claim it and own it.
Yeah, no, I'm really appreciating this nuance, because it's probably like I've been too spiritual bypassy with it. And this is I'm going like I need to unlearn what I've been taught.
Totally.
And own
Yeah,
in my body right here, parts of me. Well, that was the other thing, like, oh, part of me is feeling angry is what I would do.
And I do that sometimes too with my partner. Sometimes I'll say, a part of me is angry right now, and a part of me feels really sad. And sometimes that's actually me being congruent with myself. But if I do it habitually, then, and I think that's what you're naming, is there's like been a bit of a habitual pattern. If I do it habitually, then I'm kind of like in a bit of a, like I think there's just something about what is.
I have a very strong part, even in the Hendricks work. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to be no blame and no criticism and no drama and blah, like all that. So, and I don't want to weaponize it against myself.
Totally. Well, thank you for sharing all this. This is great. And Angela has her hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Angela, if you want.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so I had recently read Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate, and his talking about the personality C type, where he talks about, those that tend to be prone to more cancers and autoimmune disorders, and really kind of holding in, the anger, putting other people's emotions and needs above your own kind of thing. And so what I found was interesting in this experience, and since I've read this book, is that I literally I struggle. I either go from holding it in to explosive, or even to now where I'm like, okay, look, I know that this can kill me. I need to express this. And so when we were doing the exercise a while ago, because I've really worked hard at this, I still felt, by just saying and doing the growling, my heart tended to still just palpitate really quickly, right? It's just like, and yet I'm the one who will go into my garage and get a bat and beat my punching bag just because it helps me do this. So my question to you is, and with all this in consideration, is what I've found is more often than not, anger is really just a surface emotion to that deep sadness, which you were just kind of, talking about. Where underneath the anger that I often think, I think it was someone in the chat mentioned being, want to blame others when I feel angry, which is what we tend to do as humans. But what I find is I will start off feeling angry at a situation or at someone else, but underneath that and expressing that anger and beating that bag with my little bat, allowing whatever verbally I need to say out loud at the time, I inevitably feel sad. I inevitably feel this immense sadness and more anger and sadness at myself. So I'm just wondering, is that kind of what you have found? Because this is saving our life. So it's kind of like feeding that need to not feel guilty when we set boundaries, but at the same time, to push ourselves into that place where we are willing to allow the anger so we can get to the sadness underneath. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I actually hope someone like you would ask this exact question, because I have some, so we could just pretend I paid you to say all that. Because this is yeah, exactly what there's a nuance here with anger that I think is really important. And again, this is something I learned from Katie Hendricks, which is that sometimes anger is a jacket emotion. So sometimes anger sits on top of another more vulnerable feeling and emotion, but not always. So I'm sure some of you have heard or seen some quotes. The anger is always a secondary emotion, always a jacket emotion. That's not always the case. Sometimes anger is a primary emotion. So what's underneath our anger is actually a no or a trespass or some injustice. And sometimes what's under our anger is what Angela's sharing. There is some grief underneath it. So I'll just actually share with you another slide just to kind of highlight what Angela just brought forward, which I think is so great. So what is underneath your anger? This is anger as a primary emotion. And anger will sometimes come up, frustration, irritation, rage. And when we take the time to get underneath it, and I'll give you some strategies to do that, there might be a boundary violation, threatened values or beliefs, a no that's maybe not been honored by you or someone else, or unmet needs or expectations. So that's kind of indicates, ooh, what's really here is just pure anger. And then sometimes anger is a jacket emotion. And when I like the idea that it's a jacket, because for some of us, anger can kind of like puff us up. It can also guard us. It can be like this big puff jacket that guards our more vulnerable feeling, which could be fear. And as Angela shared, it could be sadness. And that happens a lot with me, with my partner. Angela is like, sometimes I'll just feel hurt and sad. And so I'll get mad at him and I'll want to pick a fight with him. But then when I'm like, ooh, Juna, what's really going on right now? Then I get beneath the anger and I'm like, oh, I just feel hurt. So I love that you have a strategy for kind of moving the charge of anger to get to what's underneath it. And sometimes underneath it can be shame, pain, trauma, or some other emotion or feeling. And here's just a few strategies, but there's infinite strategies to get underneath your anger. You can ask questions. Like, I'm a huge fan of just saying, Juna, what am I actually feeling right now? And I'll just ask the question again and again. You can do unedited journaling to access what's underneath your anger. You could see the situation from the bigger picture. Like I sometimes like to be like, okay, right before I got frustrated or angry, what was happening right there? Oh, they said something that just hurt my feelings, or, so just to kind of look at it from the bigger picture, you can do what we just did, which is some movement. I love sacred rage dances to kind of, like Angela was sharing, going in the garage, hitting things with a bat, just to move that charge of anger to get to what's underneath it. And then what we're going to do now at the end here, we're going to just talk to our anger. That's another thing you can do as a practice to kind of get underneath it and really find what's really going on here. Is it another emotion or is it just pure anger? So great questions here. Great feedback here. So I'll take you into one more practice and then we'll open it up to more questions and shares. So this next practice we're going to go into is a bit of a hybrid of the persona interview. Like I said, for those of you who've taken the Hendricks work, you know that we can talk to parts of ourselves, and we're going to do that with our own anger. And we're going to just talk to our anger and imagine it can talk back to us. And it might speak to us through words. It might speak through images. It might speak through just feeling, but just be open to whatever kind of pops up out of nowhere. And we'll just get to know it a little bit better here. So Again, in this practice, just have you connect with your body. If you want to, you can close your eyes or you can lower your lids, but just take a few breaths right now. Just get comfortable in your seat. Relaxing your jaw. Just taking a few breaths, just dropping your awareness into your body. Softening your low belly, maybe pressing your feet into the ground. And I'm going to invite you to feel into or think of an experience from your past where you felt angry. And for the sake of this exercise, maybe don't pick something that's super charged. Maybe pick something that's a little more on the gentle side, like you felt frustrated or irritated. Someone sent you an annoying text, someone cut you off on the freeway, someone interrupted you in a meeting. Just choose something that's not a super charged topic. And just take some deep breaths and just see this scenario playing out in your mind's eye. And even as you're starting to envision or feel into this one situation where you felt angry or frustrated, just almost hit, if you could, like hit the pause button on that situation and just notice again what's happening in your body. Where is there some anger or frustration right now happening inside of you from this experience? And go ahead and place a hand on your body where it feels like there's the most sensation. For many of us, anger can tend to live in the shoulders, neck, jaw, sometimes in the chest. So go ahead and just place a hand somewhere where you feel the most sensation. Taking a deep breath. And let's just imagine we can talk to the anger inside of your body right now. The anger or frustration that's here. I'm just going to imagine we can talk to it. And it can communicate with us via images, words, feelings. Really trust the first thing that comes up as we ask these questions. Just ask this place in your body, this place of anger. What's something you most want me to know right now? What is something you most want me to know right now? When you're ready, you can just ask this area of your body the next question, which is, what do you most want? What do you most want in this situation? Again, when you're ready, you can ask your anger, what do you want me to see that I've been unwilling to face about this situation? What do you want me to see that I've been unwilling to face about this situation? Last question here, just again, with your hand here on your body, just opening to anything this anger wants to say. Just ask, what action do you most want me to take? What action do you most want me to take? When you feel ready, just say thank you. And thank you to your body. Say thank you to this anger, frustration. Say thank you to yourself just for being willing again to forge this new relationship with your anger. I'm giving myself a big, huge hug right now. You can do that too if you want. Again, for some of you, this might be a really big deal what you're doing today. So just to really give yourself some care, some kindness, for being willing to listen to your anger, regardless of what came up. When you're ready, you can start to come back to the space. You can open your eyes, maybe wiggling your toes and fingers, doing a little stretch. Great. Yeah. And if you want to, I don't know if some of you have a journal, but you can take a few minutes journaling what came up for you. Or I'm also open to hearing some shares. And again, you can write in the chat or you can just unmute yourself. Looks like Donna, you're unmuted. Oh, wait, muted again. Oh, Donna, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm going to say something before I forget it. So, okay, in touch with anger. And then what do you want from this? And immediately I kind of laughed because I'm like, I don't even know if I want it. I'm sorry. And I was like, it's definitely hurt. Because I think your first question was, what do you want? What do you want me to know or whatever, however the question was asked. And it was like, I'm hurt. I'm just hurt. And then I didn't necessarily want a sorry. And I had to laugh because I'm like, well, you want something you can't even get. It's not like it can be undone. So that's pretty ridiculous, you know? And so then the next question was,
and can I pause you for one moment?
Yeah.
So one thing I'd also just offer is it's okay to want something that didn't get to happen or can't happen. Like, I don't know, there's something for myself where it's really just so valuable to just honor, wait, here's what I want. Here's what I wanted. And just to let that like stand on its own, even if that can't happen or couldn't have happened, like to like, there's just a way I come back to myself when I allow myself to have what I wanted or allow myself to want what I wanted, even if it's not possible. So sorry, you can keep going.
I understand. No, I get what you're saying. That's a good distinction, because instead of brushing it off right away to correct it and to say, well, now, you know, to be the sensible one, to, you know, or something, to just allow it and say, yeah, I wish it didn't happen. The next thing I think was, what do you want to tell you? What do you want from the anger or what, something like that? The last one, the last question.
What action do you want me to take?
Oh yeah, which was forgiveness. Like, so it's just so easy to see when you look at it and then not so easy in the moment to do. But yeah.
Oh, that's powerful.
But I wanted to express it because it was very powerful. Even the part that got corrected, not corrected, I know that that's not what you were doing, but you know what I mean? Even that part was powerful in and of itself, because I thought it was pretty powerful that I even had the thought that it can't be undone, so to say. Even if the person wanted to, they can't undo it. So, you know.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Donna. That's beautiful. And I love that you just followed it and you're like, oh, and forgiveness. Forgiveness is part of that next action step. So that's powerful. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? Oh, it looks
And
like
because it's
Oh.
true, that's really what you want to be able to do. I mean, not always. I sure didn't at first, but yeah, you do. You want to be able to forgive it, because I think I even wrote in the chat, whoever got sad, you get sad sometimes because depending upon the person that you are, you don't even want to have to be angry in the first place. If it's not your nature, so
yeah.
can twist you all up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And one thing I've also learned is to not prematurely forgive. Like there's a way that because I wanted my anger to go away, I would try to almost, it was like a flight response into forgiveness, or like a fawn response into forgiveness. And so there's something about really waiting for forgiveness to feel truly accurate and aligned. And it does naturally happen, not for everyone, but in situations where it just naturally arises, it's like, wow, I'm ready to move into this next step. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And Tracy, you had your hand up, and then I'll go to Elisa.
Thank you, Juna. I thought that was a great exercise. I really enjoyed it. And it was definitely some surprising things came up, but the piece about just honoring whatever's there, what a beautiful practice. I do it with feelings all the time. And I actually was surprised to find out that I was angry because I didn't actually know it. I've been feeling a bit discouraged, and underneath that actually was anger. And I thought I was angry at the universe, but I was actually angry at myself. And so it was, and I think that's why I was blind to it, was because I'm actually angry at myself. And so I was able to realize, oh, this anger is asking for something, and I was able to really just honor that and hear that and be like, oh, okay. So yeah, I love that exercise. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I love what you just shared about how, sometimes it is self-anger. And instead of kind of being like, no, I shouldn't be angry at myself, or how do I make this go away? It's almost like honoring, I am angry at myself, and that's okay. And okay, how do I repair this with myself? Or what is the action step I need to take? Like kind of taking the shame away from it and the big deal around it, and just what is this illuminating? What is the step I need to take? So thank you for sharing that. It's great. And Elisa, and then we'll go to Chanel at the end.
That was a great exercise. I've done similar ones with persona, but I really liked the visualization and kind of getting into it. I noticed actually at the end, anger, I kind of said, anger, what are you here to share with me? And anger just said, I'm sorry. And it was about a relationship that ended. And so there was some layer of grief, obviously, underneath the unmet need. So I thought that was a really first instinct kind of thing. And the second thing is more of a question. So I've done a lot of work with the Conscious Leadership Group, and Diana Chapman and Jim Defner, I think, studied with the Hendricks for some time. And they said once that and this is something I love and I use in my coaching, that if you could help clarify it or give more examples, they say that, acting angry is different than feeling angry. So we might throw a book across the room, and a lot of people associate that with anger and or happiness with big hand motions, but that doesn't actually mean we're feeling it. And so I've explained it a bunch of different ways to my clients, and I feel like I understand it, but I'd love to hear how you interpret that or would add to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one nuance here is just when I'm acting angry, anger is driving the car. The 4-year-old is in the driver's seat. Versus when I am feeling angry, that 4-year-old is in the back seat of the car, not stuffed in the trunk either. It's in the back seat of the car with his little child safety belt on, and it can inform how I'm driving the car. It can yell in the back seat, or it can say, hey, mommy, turn right, so it can inform my actions, but it's not driving. So that's one nuance that can be helpful. Another nuance I like to ask myself is, am I speaking from my anger or to my anger right now? So am I acting from my anger, or am I feeling my anger? So those might be kind of some nuances that you can also play with there. So that's a great comment. And I'm so glad that you help clients doing this work too. So it's really powerful.
Thank you.
And I know we're at the end of our time here, and there was one more person who wanted to share. Oh, yes, Chanel, do you want to go ahead and ask a question or share here before we bring this to a close?
Yeah, thanks, Juna. Yeah, and I've really appreciated this, and I appreciate we're tight for time. When you talked about don't prematurely forgive and wait for it to truly feel aligned, I just wondered if you had any resources, ideas, in the time that we've got available around that.
I don't, but I wish I did have some resources for you. I think for me, like the greatest resource has just been growing my emotional awareness and really noticing when I'm uncomfortable with feeling what I'm feeling, the habitual strategies I go towards of like, oh, how do I just make this all better? It's like, no, Juna, how can I just sit with my discomfort right now? So there's just like for me, the practice is just noticing when I leave myself versus can I come back to myself? And even if it's uncomfortable, I'm okay. Everything's okay. So that might be just something to continue to practice. But I think that's a great question. If anyone has some ideas, you can add in the chat some resources for Chanel.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the reminder that you've given too. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Well, thank you all. I know we're at the end of our time here. Thank you, Michelle, for helping host us today. And just want to say thank you to Katie and the Big Leap program for hosting all this. And it's just a delight to be with all of you today. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, Juna. It was very wonderful.
Everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.